Well, I think, like some of you, I'd gone through 10 years of just utter chaos in a newsroom, and I was probably one more layoff or one more uncaring hedge fund owner or some guy who simply wanted to extract even more profits from the organization away from hanging up my pica pole and joining my pal over here with my board shorts and spending some time on the beach. But just about a year ago, a little bit less than a year ago, two non-newspaper guys from Boston showed up, and they said they wanted to buy the Register. It wasn't their first attempt, but they really liked what they saw, a market without a great deal of competition in it, no newspapers, good-sized market, over 3 million people, and reasonably affluent, although the demographics of the county are changing significantly. They talked about really a different model, I think, than we've talked about here. They didn't talk about print first, they didn't talk about digital first, they talked about subscriber first. So they wanted to turn the traditional newspaper model upside down. Instead of being advertiser first, it would be subscriber first. They believed that there was a kind of virtuous cycle that they talked about, that if you started with quality content, great journalists producing great content, then subscribers would come, and with a loyal base of subscribers within the community rather than without advertising would come. It sounds like a very logical argument to me, and so I bought into it. I bought into it fully. And I believe that despite what you hear from lots of publishers, that unless you get some huge boost from technology, you cannot do more with less. You can only do less. So you need people in order to do more. And my favorite example, one that I talk about with people who come to join us is my Starbucks example. So if you go into Starbucks and you order your venti latte and you plunk down your $4.50, and each time you go there, the cup gets smaller and the brew gets weaker, eventually you're going to stop going there. And I believe that's what a lot of newspapers have done, committing a kind of institutional suicide. So to get us started, we needed to hire some people. So this is the wall opposite the bathrooms in our third floor newsroom. We wanted to find a high traffic area, and there isn't anyone greater than the bathrooms. And these are many of the new people who have joined us. It's actually a flat wall, but in order to get them all in there, we needed a wide-angle lens, and it's actually shy of some people. It was taken a month or so ago. We've added 175 journalists to our newsroom in less than a year. 58% of those people are focused on community products, which I'll talk about in just a moment. About a third of that 175 are what we call trainees, and it's a program that we started hiring young journalists out of college. They've maybe had an internship or two, or maybe a job at a small paper, but they aren't able to accomplish. They don't have the clips to get hired at a destination newspaper. So we pay them a little under $12 an hour, provide housing for them, and ask them to stay with us for a year. And they support us greatly, both in terms of the stories that they produce, but also in terms of the energy and the new way of thinking that they're able to bring to the organization. About half of the new hires are writers. So we've really bulked up on the amount of people who have their feet on the street and are out talking to people. It's an interesting mix. Interesting cultural mix, because we've got these young trainees, we've got the survivors who have hung on through 10 years of chaos and a bankruptcy and all sorts of stuff, who are really committed to journalism, And then we have a group of seasoned veterans who have either left the industry or been laid off from the industry and have this strong passion to be able to do something that it's important. And it's a fabulous mix of people. So this is just a small sampling of some of the new or redesigned products that we've put together. When I started compiling a list, I came up with over 50 either new sections or new pages or new features that we've added, all focused on the community. I did a page count, just a content page count, not including advertising, May over May of last year. And we've added 768 pages in a month, or a 71% increase into the daily. There's lots of emphasis on the early week papers. Our Monday paper is, depending on the day, either an 8 or a 9 section newspaper and can have upwards of 90 pages in it. We believe that newspaper reading is a habit, and it needs to be a 7-day habit. We've increased our emphasis in the news section on the how and the why rather than the what, because so much of the what is a commodity, and what we've tried to do is pick out 5 or 6 stories of the day, layer them, and allow people to gain some insight and perspective in what we read, and do briefs on the rest. We've invigorated our watchdog reporting and our investigative reporting through hiring, and we've reopened the Washington Bureau with a bureau chief and 3 trainees that we're going to spend some time in the McClatchy Bureau, actually, to do our reporting. We haven't given up, of course, on digital, but it's really meant to be a subscriber benefit. People pay. People pay if they want to see our digital work. Our primary emphasis, however, we're not simply chasing page views. We're not updating things as they happen. We will report on breaking news, but our focus is really on providing context, insight for people, and most of that happens in the print edition. So this main focus is really on local. We're probably the largest community newspaper in the country. Our management model is more like a weekly newspaper than it is a metro organization. We're a collaborative organization, not very many layers of management, but we also have a complete, through our wire services and through some very smart wire editors, offer a complete menu of state, regional, national, international sports and business news. This group of papers on the left are varsity editions. We have a lot of high schools in Orange County, a lot of kids, a lot of parents, a lot of relatives that we serve. We started out about a year ago. We've always had a fairly strong, we thought, varsity presence. And in print, we had a 4-page varsity section that we produced on Saturdays. We increased that to 12 pages. And then, in addition, we added two sections, one on Mondays and one on Wednesdays. They're 6-page sections that are filled with photos. And the idea of these things is that you clip them out, you give them to grandma, you put them on the refrigerator, and you really build a strong audience. During this spring, we covered 175 games a week of high school games and published photos from all of them. Lots of names, lots of stories about community sports. We use this in 2 ways. In the register, we have the sections that I talked about, but we also take many of those photos and put them both online, but also in the community products that I'll talk about a little bit. And this thing in the middle called Varsity Arts, I think, was just a brilliant idea, because for years newspapers have gone and covered sports and done a great job, and all those kids in the creative arts have not gotten the recognition. So with this varsity arts section, it's a 10-page section that appears along with the regular arts section in our newspaper. And it features the significant accomplishments of kids who are involved in theater, in dance, in the visual arts. And it's just a fabulous thing. When we launched it, I've never seen such an outpouring of support from the community. It was like this collective sigh that went up and said, finally we're getting some recognition for all these wonderful things that the kids are doing. And we also take the photos from those pieces and put them in our community edition. In all, in this varsity coverage, in May, again, just collecting some statistics, we published 1,952 high school game photos. The bulk of them, about 1,100 or so, went into our community papers. 816 went into the daily. So we have daily varsity coverage in our newspapers. And along with the varsity arts program, you know, if it were just great content, I would say I'd be as skeptical, I think, as many of you. These guys are going to run out of money, right? And they'll lay off everybody and go back to Boston. But they're really thinking differently. I think maybe it's because they don't have a strong newspaper background. But for example, one of the ads that you'll see on the back of the varsity arts program is for a music program, realizing that there is a need in the community to help bands at high schools. They partnered with a local music store. So if, as a fundraising activity, the local bands go out and sell a subscription, a 4-week subscription to the newspaper for $19.99, they will in turn get a $100 voucher that they can then apply to buy instruments. There are a number of enlightened self-interest business models that are focused along the same lines. They started several months ago this idea of what we're calling internally the Golden Envelope Program. And that's every subscriber, every 7-day subscriber receives a $100 voucher, and they in turn can sign over that voucher to a nonprofit within the community. And it doesn't go directly to the nonprofit. Again, this idea of enlightened self-interest comes in. It goes to the advertising department, and that nonprofit then can use the voucher to advertise in the newspaper. The program itself was worth $12.4 million in advertising. There were several of the nonprofits who were able to accrue more than $250,000 worth of advertising to get their message out, to build their own community. One other, and then I'll stop, although there are many examples of this. For $7 a week, a local business can receive over $1,500 of value in advertisings, job listings, charities, gifts, checks, in some cases, even some services that small businesses might need to support themselves. So you can see, in addition to a subscriber model, these guys are building a membership model. They really want not only to create something that is essential for the community, so if you live there, it becomes your guide, but they really want to insinuate themselves within the fabric of the community. Supporting nonprofits has been a big part of that. These things over on the right are we have 3 major universities in Orange County. And we've created, and it's been, I know, the topic of some conversation about whether we've crossed the line in some ways. But the three major universities have come up with advertising sponsorship. We treat these as community editions. What we found was that, you know, in our rush to talk about some of the sort of the unseemly things that were going on at the universities, we were missing out on a lot of the very interesting stuff that goes on. And in my view, there are like three audiences. There's faculty, staff, alums. There are people who live around these universities who take advantage of all the great stuff going on. And then the general audience of the people in the county who really see these things as something spectacular for them. So we created a community staff. They are basically an outgrowth of our community work. And once a week, we have a 6-page section. The universities themselves are the primary advertisers, although it's open to other advertising. These things are solely produced by the newsrooms. We have a box in each one of them that talks about the transparencies that are involved. They're like small cities. I mean, some of these communities are actually bigger than some of the cities that we serve. So we're trying to treat them like a community, and we've gotten tremendous response, I think, from people who are unaware of things that were going on. So this is the community work that we do. There are 34 cities in Orange County. We've got weeklies now in 25. That number grows. We talk about this within the organization as being, we talk about the register as being, as a metaphor, a tree. And the roots of this tree need to be very strong to hold up the tree and nurture its growth. And the roots really are our community coverage, these 25 newspapers that I've talked about. So we've changed each of these 25 from little square tabloids that were mostly 70% advertising, 30% news, in some cases even greater advertising, to broadsheets that range in size from 16 to 28 pages. It's really news that people can't find elsewhere. One of my colleagues who works on this says it's like Google proofing the newspaper. This is stuff that you really can't find on Google. You can only find it if you live in the community by reading the community newspaper. It's filled with all sorts of stuff, events, voices. We've designed in some yes pages here. You know, the kinds of things where somebody calls up and says, you know, my son just became an Eagle Scout. Can you put that in the newspaper? Yes, we can do that. We can put all sorts of things in the newspaper regarding community news that we weren't able to before. And also it's home for about 85 to 90,000 advertisers, small advertisers that we weren't doing business with in the past. And we've hired a staff to go out and knock on some doors and talk to people about, because advertising is content too, and it's the kinds of things that people still want to see in a local community newspaper. About 2 pages of the newspapers have the varsity sports. Somewhere between a half and 1 page are varsity arts coverage. We've taken one of those weeklies and made it a 5-day daily to increase coverage within the community. The only way you can get that community daily, of course, is to subscribe to the Register. We'll do 2 more of those dailies before the end of the summer. In all, we've, again, the May page count, we've increased the page count in these weeklies by 162% in the amount of time that we've been doing it. And then this to me is an interesting story. One Friday night, I was driving home, and I pressed the little button to open up my garage door and pulled in. I looked in my rearview mirror, and my neighbor across the street and his neighbor just to the left of him, John Martino and Jackie Larson, were walking across the street, and they had a newspaper in their hand. And I don't know about you, but whenever I see people approaching me with a newspaper, this is not a good thing. So I opened the door, and I said hi to them. I've known them for a number of years, and John said, "Have you seen this newspaper?" And I said, No, I haven't. I've been really busy with the daily, and I haven't had a chance to look at it." And he opens it up, and this is a double truck spread inside that community newspaper. And he said, see that lead photo on the upper right-hand side? That's Joey Martino. That's my son. And he's just thrilled to have his picture in the newspaper. And then Jackie Larson, his neighbor, just again to the left, across the street from me. See that lead photo on the left? That's Nicole. That's Nicole Larson. And, you know, all of her life, Nicole has been overshadowed by her older sister, Kelsey. Kelsey went to school on a 4-year swimming scholarship. Nicole said, Kelsey never had a lead photo in the newspaper before. This has given me hope. And a little bit, I hope that's what we're doing here, that there is another path, there is some hope, there is some possibilities. I think one of the things that's been most destructive about the recent years that we've gone through is that we have lost a sense of possibility, that what we do really can make a difference. The response, and I know you're the skeptics among you, and I'm one of them, will say, is it working? I have to say, yes, it's working. There are, both anecdotally and there are some very strong indicators that this idea of providing important, relevant, essential information for people in your community works. Thanks.